City clerk, please note attendance. And we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any alterations or suggestions in regards to the agenda? Chair has one. I'd like to move item number 7, King County property acquisition, parcel yada yada. I'd like to move that up to be top of the agenda bills. Hearing no objections, we'll go ahead and make that change. Are there any other alterations or comments in regards to the agenda?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so I know we've got a full agenda tonight, but I thought, and maybe it's on here and I just didn't see it, but I thought we were going to talk about possible other revenue sources as we kind of look forward, whether revenue room sales tax increase, things like that. I think we'd ask for some information. I thought we were going to get back now.
I think that is still in work. City Administrator Chambliss?
We're still pulling that information together and we'll have it available at the next meeting.
Nothing for me. With that, we'll move on into the agenda. First item is public comments. Are those present here wishing to make comment for the committee on items not currently on the agenda? And you'll have to let me know if somebody online wishes to make comments. I didn't kick off. Do we have any hands raised online?
No.
All right. And seeing nobody in the room, we'll move on from public comment. With that, we'll move into approval of the minutes as dated October 17th, 2023. Chair has no comments or revisions. Any other comments or revisions from the committee?
No.
Unless there are objections, we'll take the approval of minutes as approved. Hearing no objections, minutes are approved. Let's move on to consideration of claims approval report dated November 13th, 2023. Chair has no comments, nor have I received questions in regards to this in email. Are there any questions or queries from the committee?
No, not for me.
Okay. Any objections to the approval of the report as presented? Hearing none, we'll take the report as presented as approved. With that, we'll move on into the agenda bills.
Just point of order, by
Yep.
approved, you mean forwarded to
Forwarded
the
to
council?
council.
Okay.
Sorry,
I knew what you meant.
take me from there. With that, we'll move to agenda bill 23-134, King County property acquisition parcel identification number. You know the number. If you don't, you can read it. I'm not gonna go through that. You want to come up and brief us on this?
Evening, Mayor, council members. Patrick Fry, I'm a project engineer with the city. I'm saying that because I don't come to F&A very often, so I'm usually in the Parks and Public Works. Anyways, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, this is for the acquisition of a parcel. It's up on the ridge. It's for it's a 5-acre parcel across from Eagle Lake. It's for the purchase of that property for $4,900, currently owned by King County. They got it because Quadrant was delinquent on their taxes. So they repossessed it or whatever, sorry, the term for that. And it's got PSE power lines over it. And so essentially the King County came to us, offering to sell it to us for what they feel they need to recoup their costs at. You know, back taxes, fees, whatever, that $4,900. And we feel that that is essentially a no-brainer to purchase that because 5 acres for $4,900 is a bargain. It has PSE power lines going over it. So there's not a ton that can be done with it, but from a private developer standpoint, but from a city standpoint, there's a ton that we can do with it. Starting with which we do already have some utilities going through it. Could be parks, could be trails, could just be maintenance items, could be a yard, could be possibilities are endless for a city. And for $4,900, it's seems obvious to me. And the $4,900 would come from the Parks General Fund as well. We talked to David Lynham, the city attorney. about what fund would make the most sense to purchase with, and we thought that this makes the most sense. It grants the most flexibility for building on it in the future or doing whatever we want to do on it in the future. Because if we pay for it through utilities, then it has to be utility related. If it's parks related, then it's a little bit more flexible.
Questions?
Yeah, just to be clear, we're out of Fund 001 or out of three, why not out of a capital fund?
Yeah, so this is,
We were gonna take it out of the this year's operating budget out of parks. We could look at doing capital, if a utility does use the property in the future, it can reimburse Fund 001 for the purchase. And it was a nominal amount, so we're gonna just take it out of the operating funds.
So I completely support this, but I do not think we should do it out of Fund 001. We're about to consider later in this meeting a property tax increase. I just think it kind of is inconsistent. So I just take it out of the out of the capital fund, which I want to say is 310.
yeah, I forget, but I know what you're talking about. And
And the easement, I assume it's Puget Sound Energy easement will remain on the property as well as we have easements on the property?
yep, we currently have a few easements on the property because we have utilities that run through it.
Any other questions, committee?
I'm in support of it.
Will administration make the note of the change of the fund? And go ahead.
I was gonna say, if administration is agreeable to changing the fund, if we just make that change now, then I'd say let's send it forward on consent. It's such a small amount. I'd just send it forward on consent,
No problem.
as long as switching the fund. Okay.
Okay. We'll move that one forward on consent for next council. Huh? You okay with that?
No, I said, yeah, no. I thought you heard me. No, I think it's a.
With that, let's move on to agenda bill 23-123, property tax levy ordinance, levying property taxes. And we can consider 124 probably together jointly.
So consider 123 and 124.
Yeah, well, let's get into it first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to, sorry, know my answer, I think. I just want to check one thing. Is the amount that's proposed the maximum amount that we're legally, the council is legally allowed to ask for? And that was that 0.89%. Is that the correct
Correct.
amount?
Mhm.
I've heard all I need to hear. It's a heck of a bargain for the taxpayers, but up to you guys.
Well, good evening. I'm Jana Walker, Budget Manager, and I can go through this presentation if you'd like, or we can just call it good. Follow Councilmember
Well,
Mayhew's.
And I guess my recommendation, this is really a council decision. We can make recommendation, but it's probably more appropriate that we have the discussion at the full council.
Mhm.
So as opposed to you going through it twice, let's do
Okay.
it at council and have that discussion there. Although again, as Councilor Mayhew noted, this is our councilmanic. What we can do at 0.8%, and it is significantly below inflation. So
Significantly.
significantly below inflation, so let's have that discussion in the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, yes,
So sorry to jump ahead. So I'm just kind of thinking about the council agenda, but in the past, and especially since we have a couple new council members, in the past, walking through how the property tax increase works has, as you know, always something that takes a lot of time. And so I think we should think about ways to find some time, maybe in a roundtable or something, to really just let this get walked through and the questions back and forth, because it's a very unusual what we do in the state of Washington. It's not what any other state does, and it's not intuitive to people. So so it doesn't sort of bog down. Anyway, maybe we think about that later when we get to the council meeting, but I'd recommend we allow some time for this to get walked through and all the council members to understand what's being proposed and how it works.
we already have a roundtable maybe we split that roundtable up.
And that actual one is being postponed. So we do have like 55 minutes available for roundtable that evening. So
So maybe when we get to that point, we sort of talk about it, but that would be my recommendation. Let that get walked through so it doesn't sort of bog down, later in the meeting when we're trying to make a decision. Just trying to understand the mechanics takes a long time.
And you've got that, I didn't dive deep. You've got the worksheet in which all this is calculated.
Yep, it's all in the packet. I can add the slides for the council meeting, although, well, depending on how big we want that packet to be, but yes, the documents, the graphs, those should be there right now too.
Go ahead.
And just in the past,
Mhm.
over the years, we sort of built up this presentation that seems to work pretty well. Are you planning to at least build off of that?
It's almost exactly the same. We did take out the end portion that relates to exemptions to shorten it.
Got it. Yeah, that's a pretty small feature and just gets really, so that makes sense. Okay, great. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Brian,
Chair.
Yeah.
Council.
That portion we're moving to our website.
Hmm.
About
The
the
exemption.
possible. So we didn't prune it, we just are relocating it.
Just out of curiosity, on the website, you're going to put a phone number for someone to call because the average Joe's just going to get lost in there.
There is a phone number actually in there to call for assistance.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And do look at we used to have, it was almost a half page, which did the compare, step this through it. So you might look at prior years. I'll talk later.
Okay.
All right, let's, so that'll take the first two agenda bills. Let me get back up to the top. Let's move to agenda bill 23-120, resolution adopting the proposed staffing plan for the 2023-2024 biennial.
So as part of cleaning things up, we're bringing this forward to amend the staffing plan that was in the biennium budget that was approved at about this time last year. I also want to update you on current recruitments and kind of showing you how all this fits together. So currently we are recruiting for police chief, fire chief, finance director, and Parks and Public Works director, and budget analyst. Those are the big seats that we're working hard to get filled before the first of the year. They may not all be on site by the first of the year if we hire somebody from outside the area. Well, we want to work with them, give them time to relocate. But that's the first tranche, so to speak, that we're going through. Later in January, we're looking at the city attorney, the IT director, systems engineer position, and get that second tranche of vital positions moving through. As this to clean this up, some of this is some equity, staff equity. Some of this has to do with flexibility of deployment and being able to cover people if somebody's out. So I'm just going to run through it. So the plan is to recruit for the city attorney in January 2024. We're asking to eliminate the vacant assistant city attorney position and fund a human resource manager. We are looking to retitle the legal assistant / assistant city clerk to a deputy city clerk position. We are looking to add 0.25 and reclassify the communications assistant to a full-time administrative specialist. Communications has taken on additional work that we used to send out. They are now supporting utilities. It is intended to pick up those costs with the utility fee survey that we are doing next year, which should cover that 0.25%. We're also looking to transfer the 0.56 project specialist from finance to administration. They have been supporting the COVID money in the past, and now they're supporting the wellness requirements to get our discount on our insurance. We would like to retitle the Finance and Human Resources Director to, actually, this has an error in it. They will now just be the Finance Director. And that is what we are recruiting for. The HR responsibilities have been reassigned to the City Administrator Office and will be picked up by the Human Resources Manager reporting to the City Administrator. We need to clean up the addition of the ERP Director. The ERP Director was brought on as a term limited position through the end of December, approximately 2 months ago by the former Finance Director to help get the Tyler project propped up and moving. They have done a phenomenal job and we wouldn't be anywhere where we are today without her. Her knowledge of Tyler is at the expert level and she really has helped a lot, but her term does terminate at the end of December. We're looking to eliminate the vacant IT project manager. The project manager position was vacated about 3 or 4 months ago when Sarah was moved over to as IT manager. We are planning to recruit for the vacant systems engineer in January of 2024. When the budget was done, we are still providing services to Duval. It was unfunded, but I don't know why it was left in there. So just removing that as cleanup. We're seeking to freeze 1 senior planner position. Those funds are supporting the comprehensive plan work and we're looking to eliminate 1 senior planner position because I think 3 is a little much for the level of work. The workload.
So the verb freeze throws me.
I'm sorry.
The verb freeze throws me.
It means we would keep the position vacant till the end of the biennium.
Okay.
And then we're also looking to freeze the associate planner position because those funds are also being used to support the comprehensive plan. And we are seeking to retitle 1 records clerk position to administrative specialist. And we're also looking to retitle the behavioral health specialist to the mental health professional community service co-responder, which is actually what the industry calls that position. And then if Gianna wants to come up,
Brian,
I'll let you. Oh,
Hey,
I'm sorry.
Councilmember, you have a question?
Director Shyam, it's just a quick question for you, sir. So when we talk about retitle, and retitling the positions, is there a change in the salary at all? Is there any change in the position?
Well, for the records clerk, there would be because there's a change in the position.
Okay,
It encompasses the records work,
Mhm.
but it also expands their responsibilities. And quite frankly, these are responsibilities that they're currently providing and they're not being compensated for.
Okay.
That's the equity portion that I was
Okay.
referring to.
Thank you.
If Gianna wants to come up, she can help us through the numbers because she understands those a lot better than I do.
I'm basically going to walk you through that table. So the savings in general and administrative are slight, but they exist. You'll see that it's slightly higher in 2023. That's because there's some delay in hiring the assistant city clerk. And after that point, that's going forward about the savings. The general fund police, there is an increase, but they are planning on funding that from the detective position, which has been vacant for several months during this year. I think possibly even longer than that. So there's funding available. For CD, you can see that that's where the lion's share of the savings is. And then information technology, Nothing this year because of that ERP director, but in the future, substantial savings with those positions being eliminated.
You-
A whole
I
bunch
see-
of
Yeah, I
questions.
see you scribbling. Go ahead.
So just a little bit higher up in the agenda, Bill, I think it's higher up. There's a whole list of
Right there.
all the positions. It looks like this.
Oh, sorry, let me switch screens.
Yeah, that one. So is this list, because I didn't see a total at the bottom, is this list all employees of the city or is this just a subset?
This is all employees, Public Works is a second page, but yes.
There's a second page to it. For totals.
Was it in our materials? I didn't see a second page.
Oh,
There is,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
there
scroll
is a
down
second page.
further.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry about that. I
No, it's
couldn't
okay.
get it all in one.
No, that's fine. I missed the second page. Okay, so there's the total. There we go. Okay. So so I'm not sure I understand the columns. Because I got confused. There's two columns that have the name change requested. And so I wasn't,
Correct. We put the full-time employees on the left and the term limited employees on the right.
got it. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah,
So,
keep going.
how many of so let's see, so what we're proposing to have is 114.75. Correct?
Correct.
Authorized positions, yeah?
Full-time.
Yeah. FTs, yeah. So, how many of those are vacant
Currently
right
18.
now? So, okay, so 8. Oh, that's that column, vacant FTEs. Amazing how you just answered the question. Okay, and is it our plan right now during 2024 to is our intent to attempt to fill all of those 18 positions? Is that
Yes, sir.
fair? Got it, okay.
Except
Sorry,
for what
although
the
if we move, so
Hey,
8,
Except for the freezing in CD, sorry.
okay, so maybe we just talk about freeze, because I didn't understand that. To me, a position's either authorized and we're filling it, or we aren't. So I don't understand how we'd have a position but no intent to fill it. Why shouldn't we just take that off the list?
We can, I took that language from a previous council action that was taken when Budget Manager Boutte was here. And that was the terminology that he used in that council action, was that we are freezing that position. And because those funds needed to support the comprehensive plan project. So we can deauthorize those if we don't want to fill them in the future.
Yeah.
Or
For what it's worth, my thought would be just take it off, and then if next biennium, if we want to add some positions, we very likely might, then those get added in as we're
Okay.
adding these for those. So that would be my point of view on it. Just from the perspective of sort of using Councilmember Sundwall's, former Councilmember Sundwall's term hygiene, just from kind of a hygiene, if you will, like it would seem to me we'll have to have a list of employees that are the employees that we have or are trying to have at this time. So, keep going.
Sure, I got one question, but keep going.
Okay. Can I ask about the assistant city attorney position? So that came up about 2 or 3 years, no, not 2, 3-ish years ago, 3-4 years ago, maybe. And the argument that was made to the council at the time was that, and I'll ask 2 questions, you can hit them both at once, because they're related. What the idea was that the amount of work that we have in the city is such that there's so much beyond the ability of one city attorney that we were still doing an enormous amount of work with contractors, outside law firms. And there was enough, sort of analysis of the type of that work. And the idea was, no, we could bring in an assistant city attorney and we will save money. We will save, yeah. So my question is, what is our thinking in that regard? And then sort of related to that, I'll just ask the same time in the legal department. Usually attorneys, just knowing attorneys in that profession, attorneys don't usually do their own letters and their own filing and their own, like, in other words, it would seem that a city attorney having, I can't tell here what the old title was, but having an administrative assistant would seem to be necessary. So a city attorney without administrative assistant seems like we're going to have the highly paid city attorney doing a lot of work that a administrative assistant could support them with. So those are my two questions. What are the thoughts around assistant city attorney and the costs, and then the thought around having a administrative support?
So I think ultimately whoever the city attorney should be, that's a conversation I need to have with them in the future to make sure we're supporting them adequately. We have been operating for 8 months about, I think, with a part-time single city attorney. And so I did not feel that I could make the decision and defend it to the citizens that that's the best way I think they could spend their dollars, by hiring 2 city attorneys right off the bat. I think we should start with the city attorney, work with that city attorney to set up the office that they need to be successful. So I think we need to be flexible, but I also don't want to carry positions that are not necessary at the time. What is necessary currently is an HR manager position.
All right, so without mixing issues,
yeah.
let me just make sure I understood what you said. So if I understood you correctly, I'm gonna try and paraphrase you back, see if I got it right, is whatever the workload was at the time we decided to add an assistant city attorney, what you're saying is, look, right now, for 8 months, we've been using an outsourced city attorney, and we have not needed to supplement that with a second attorney. That one attorney has managed to handle all of our legal needs. Is that or let me say, all of those that you would expect an in-house legal attorney to handle? Obviously, there are specialty areas which you would
Right.
always go outside, but
Right.
am I understanding you correctly? You're saying, hey, looking at what we're doing right now, you just don't see that need presently.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you. And then what about the administrative support?
So I think that we have options. Part of the tentatively agreed upon Teamster contract streamlines some positions, and a lot of people are being reclassified to administrative support. So we will have a framework in place to support the city attorney when they come on, as we go through the process of building that department up as they need. I think that we may need to add an administrative support person in the future for them, but I don't see that right off the bat as being an immediate need.
So then just
And
to
I
close that up.
definitely want them involved in that process.
Yeah, I understand that point of view. So just to close that out, I would just say I would be interested in hearing from, so administrative support for an attorney is usually a very specialized, very skilled
Correct.
position, someone that has, so, someone who has relatively, I don't know if extensive the right word, but has a fair amount of experience in legal matters. There's a lot of very legal specific things that they're asked to do. So I'd be really interested in Mr. Linehan's point of view as to whether, does he use administrative assistant at his firm? Like how, like, I'd really not, I think we could really put ourselves in an awkward position if we have no authorized position. We try to bring in a city attorney and we're saying, yeah, but you won't have any administrative support, or I think that might be a mistake. I'd want to hear from Linehan why he's convinced that would be okay for us. In other words, if what we're trying to do is find funding for something else, let's find funding for something else. If we need it, we need it. But I wouldn't, like, this seems like something that's needed unless he can firmly say it just isn't needed. But yeah.
Well, I know you don't want to mix topics, but I just need to talk, I gotta fight for my people. So I have two critical needs right now. The level of public records request is burying the city clerk. Burying the city clerk. I think we've gotten 9 or 12 emails just at the time we sat down in these chairs tonight. So we have a desperate need for a deputy city clerk to take some of that load off the current city clerk and be, so we're more responsive on our public records requests. It's very important that we are responsive and complete. The other critical need we need is an HR manager. We need a higher level HR person to focus on HR. There's an HR component to Tyler that all has to be built out. Those decisions need to be made. We need that HR professional. We need them now as we're embarking on building out the software so it gets built out right the first time. So we're not repeating that cost.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we, the city, the county, by the way, they're not just your people, they're our people.
Sorry.
But it's important. We all,
Yeah.
like, so it's important for us to think the right way because this is about us all trying to get this right, So anyway, this challenge with public records requests and meeting the demand has been a problem since that law came into existence. We have struggled. It has been a heck of a challenge always. And the amount of resources it's for a city our size that's spread as thin as we are, it feels hard to justify, funding positions that, yes, they're important to the public and to our public role, but really don't get the parkway mode. They don't get, drinking water pumped, et cetera. So, but this has been a problem all along. In my own view is I support that we just have to do this. We just can't get crosswise on this. So, although I'm not in favor of shorting any, that's not the word I mean to say, I think we just have to fund it and find a way to do it, period. It just creates, because then, correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to pull people in to do it who aren't doing it full time. And this is hard and complex work and it's just not a wise way to get this done, right? So anyway, I completely support that. And I will say on the HR, I have always thought we need an HR professional. I was surprised when we moved away from that. So I think I completely support that.
And while you were going, I answered my question.
Yeah.
All right.
Can-
Go ahead. He
Um,
said he was good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So one of the things we've struggled with, and I'm honestly I'm concerned about right now, is in community development and the number of planners that we have. I think we had more planners, say, going into COVID than we have now. And we had some planners that were very experienced with us at Snoqualmie. So those were tough losses. But even then, there's a lot of discussion about should we have more, because one of the things that planners do is apply for grants. And, you go to some of these AWC meetings, there are cities that, brag is not the word I want, that share how successful they are at funding those planner positions and also engineering positions out of grants that they're able to get by having a steady stream pipeline of, that's like an engineering term, pipeline, steady pipeline, right? of grants that we apply to. So the idea was, how do we, have the resources do that? And it was always, can we find a way to fund more planner positions so that we could go after those grants, because actually they'll end up paying for themselves and beyond. They'll help us pay for engineering positions in public works. So I hate to see us, I hate to see us where we are now as compared to then. And I just, the future of where we can be, the things we can accomplish, the grants we can go grab. I hate to see us kind of scaling back on our sort of dreams in that direction. I'd really encourage us to keep going in that direction for us to somehow find the way.
I would not characterize our activities, and I know you didn't mean by scaling back our attempts at grants. In fact, I think this morning I sent Dylan a grant to work on. But Director Arteche is being very successful with grants. She seems to have that knack, and I know she's watching and she's applying for them. And I know Public Works, Dylan, that's part of Dylan's role as capital project manager, is to work on grants, and they have sent out several. Hand applied for $28 million for Meadowbrook Bridge. It was unsuccessful. So I believe the grant work is going. Right now, what we're seeing in the grants is they are not hitting our demographics. We are not qualifying for a lot of grants. Congressperson Shriver sent us I said that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Prior, yeah.
Sorry. She sent out the federal grant catalog, and Dylan will testify to the fact that I was trying to be as creative as possible, and I was driving him insane, but we simply did not qualify with our demographics for anything in that catalog. So I'm hoping the next budget cycle with Congress, things will loosen up a little bit, and maybe we can qualify a little bit. We have a few things that play against us in the grant. This is a higher income community that kicks us out a lot, but we're also in the mega metropolis bubble of Seattle. So we're considered, urban. We're not rural, even though we're pretty rural. So those things are fighting against us, and we're going to keep checking those grants, and we're going to keep applying for grants, and keep trying to be successful.
So then we're going to, let's see, senior planners. How does this work? Okay, go from 3 to 2. That's the idea. And are both, so we've got senior planners and then an associate planner. So 2 senior and 1, do we have those 2 and 1 filled, or we're looking to fill them, or what's our status?
Well, that previous council action froze 2 of those positions.
Okay.
So we have 1 senior planner currently.
Got it.
Ultimately, that structure of having an associate planner and a couple senior planners is to try to create that ladder of career growth. So we retain people for many years. That's what we're trying to do throughout the city, is start building those careers at least to 15 years. I figure after 15 years, we got them, but we need to get those ladders in place.
Okay, so this would give us 2 senior and 1 associate. They're not all filled right now. We would be looking to fill them in 2024.
2025.
Not in 2024.
No, because those positions need to cover the cost of the consultants that are completing the comp plan.
Right. So then if we're not trying to fill them, shouldn't we take them off?
That was the suggestion you made, so yeah.
Yeah, change freeze to eliminate,
Correct.
and we can pull it back in later as we need.
All right. For what it's worth, just side point is, look at, I'll double check, but I'm almost positive kind of the number 1 example to go look at is Port Orchard. Similar in size to us, wildly successful year after year, wildly successful at grants. And you're right, at our size and so on, I think they're the same way. Federal grants you're not going to find a lot there. What they do is they go after these PSRC, so money that's flowed into the region and then is being dispersed out through PSRC. That seems to be where the big opportunity is for, cities our size. But
Definitely.
for what it's worth, yeah.
Big grants. Yeah.
So now. That makes sense. Understand that.
Good.
So I wasn't quite following. So it might be that I just don't get it, in which case just tell me what's really happening. I don't worry about what I ask, but my recollection is we had an administrative staff in the police department and administrative staff in the fire department. And as we went into COVID, we were very worried about what would happen. And so we were doing a lot of sort of trying to tighten the belt wherever we could because we were worried about lost revenues and we didn't know how bad it might get. Remember, and at that time we didn't know, what was it called? The money that Congress put out to help. Remember? CARES, and then followed by
I
Yeah.
did one, I can't do two.
So we didn't know that was coming. So, but anyway, what I recalled was the idea was that the fire department and police department looked at this and said, you know what, we don't each need a full administrative assistant. Maybe we could share one. Now, maybe that's a faulty memory, but if so, are we looking at that? Is that what we're doing, or kind of have we moved away from that? And just maybe update us on what's true in any of that.
So last year, I think it was, Chief Carrera came before the council and requested to eliminate their full-time admin position, reduce it to a half-time position to fund the additional money required for the training officer. And that did happen. So you have a half-time admin position at fire. At police, there was an admin position and 2 records positions, which if the admin position was out, the records position were covering those duties, but it wasn't under their job duty, and it prevented the chief, and he's there in the room, and he could certainly come speak to this better than me, but it doesn't give him the management flexibility needed to support each other. And quite frankly, that can have an effect on team dynamics and et cetera. Not to mention there's an equity issue requiring people to do work that's not within their job description. So what we are trying to do with this action is to reclassify the 2 Snoqualmie record, or 1 Snoqualmie records position, keep the admin position to 2 admin positions so they can back each other up. The 3rd records position has to remain a records position because it's paid for by North Bend. So we would need to seek North Bend approval to change that, which we may or may not in the future. Currently, it's vacant.
Okay, so let me try and feed it back, see if I got it right. We have 3 employees, 3 positions. Sounds like 1 is vacant.
Correct.
3 positions, 2 records clerks, was that the right term?
Yeah, 1 was evidence, 1 was records.
Evidence clerk, records clerk is the right term? Okay.
I think so.
Technician.
Specialist, sorry.
Specialist. Okay, 1 record specialist, 1 evidence specialist, and then a administrative.
It was a
Positions.
administrative coordinator position.
Right. And so what we're talking about now is still having 3 positions. Now we'll have 1 specialist and 2 administrative support, and we think that'll cover the need.
Correct. And
Got
when we move forward with the North Bend amendment, the goal would be to have 3 so that you have the ultimate management flexibility and everybody can back each other up.
And just so I'm clear, the job description for administrative person would include the duties of those other 2 positions that were.
Correct, and additional duties.
And additional, got it. And the cost, whatever the cost difference is, was in the numbers that
Correct.
she went over with it. Okay. Oh, got it.
You're good at this stage?
Those are my questions.
All right. Again, I answered my question while we were talking. So,
Very good.
good at that. You have any additional questions?
Oh, wait, sorry, I had one other question I wrote on the front, sorry. So you kind of touched on this before. and maybe this is the numbers, but I just want to be sure. The thought on my mind is to the extent that. Sorry, I didn't understand that. Siri doesn't understand that. So let me try and ask this well. So we have the positions here that are currently authorized, the changes that are being proposed. We've got a breakdown of what the cost impact of that would be. My question is, to the extent that we have spent money on contractors to do the work for our vacant positions, either so far during the biennium to date, 2023, or that we think might happen in early 2024 before we're able to get some of these filled. I'm just trying to figure out, is that cost in these numbers, or do we have another cost that we really haven't factored into these numbers that we need to think about? Because this makes it look like not too much difference in cost. But if additional to that, we spent a whole bunch of money on contractors and our thinking was, well, we're going to pay for that out of these vacant positions, then I'm just wondering, is there another number that we should know about?
I believe, and Jenna, please clarify, I think it does include all of that, correct? She kept me honest.
Keep him honest. I think he's honest to start, but keep him there.
I don't believe that we are expecting to pay more contractors. The bulk of it was in IT, and that's expected to be ending at the end of the year. Which is, you'll see as part of the ERP amendment.
So for an example, we don't have a city attorney. We're saying we're going to have one.
Oh, that.
But we
aspect.
contracted with one, and I have the idea we might have done that in other places as well beyond IT. So that's why I want, so would the cost of Linehan, for example, be, not to pick on him, but just the first one that came to mind, so I was talking about him earlier, but is that cost in these numbers, or is that additional to these numbers?
We are presuming, we don't have a full year of data yet, but that his costs would be swallowed up in the attorney's salary and benefits. And then the other aspect of that is the planners, which we already discussed. They are funding the comp plan.
Okay, so let me see if I understand that. So when we look at the numbers that are here, we've got the cost of a city attorney.
Assistant city attorney.
No, the city attorney. So we've got, because the budget had one for all of the biennium. And what you've done is, in these numbers, is that just there for the whole time, or is that, yeah, you just left it in place for the whole time, is that right?
Yes.
So therefore, since we didn't spend it on that employee, therefore it was available to be spent on Linehan, that didn't need to be adjusted here. You've just left the amounts. A
Correct.
full costing for those positions. Got it. Okay, thank you. That's page 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Soon we'll move that on to council, non-consent.
So that, if I could just recommend, might be something, if we end up with a round table in advance, that might also be something to sort of take people through, because there may be a lot of questions. I just had a bunch of questions at the end of which I only really had one concern, I think, which was the
Assistant for the city attorney.
no, I was fine with that, with the assistant for the administrative assistant for the city attorney. Yeah, that was my only, but it took me, so council members might want to have time to just sort of work through that. So anyway, something to think about.
Right, and we'll talk workshop items when we get to talking the agenda. All right, we'll move that forward. Again, non-consent. We'll move on to the next agenda bill, which will be agenda bill AB 23-132, 2023-2024 mid-biennial budget amendment. You don't get to sit down.
Good evening. Okay, let me share my screen here.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second, Chair?
Go ahead.
It's been brought to my attention that I never formally introduced Jana as our new budget manager.
Hmm.
So everyone, this is Jana, our new budget manager.
Thank you. Okay. This is the mid-biennial budget update that summarizes mostly the general fund aspects of our quarterly 3 report. That report is in the packet, and I'm not going to go through it in a detailed way unless we have questions. This one focuses on the general fund. Currently, revenues are expected to decline as the Snoqualmie tribe properties within the city have moved into trust. That happened during this year, and that affects some of our revenues, property taxes, sales revenue, B&O taxes, hotel, LTAC funds. Also, high inflation, as you all know. We also have some vacancies in management and professional, so approximately 17.5%, which have offset some of our expenses during the year, but we are actively currently filling those vacant positions. Also, labor negotiations are approaching decisions, but the completion will result in salary and benefit increases within the city, and those are not included in my forecasting tables today. Utility rate study is set to begin in 2024, and there's already some preliminary work happening right now, which will adjust our rates to the appropriate levels. For our operating forecast, right now, our revenues in the general operating fund are expected to come in at about 20 million, which is 426,000 higher than expected. Strong performance came from utility taxes, B&O taxes, and charges for goods and services. Expenses overall are down 582,000. Savings are mostly found within the community development department. And just a table.
Sorry, could you just go back? I was trying to take that in. Could you
Yep.
go back one?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. This is the table from the quarterly report. You'll see property taxes are a little low. Sales and use taxes look really low. Part of the reason for this is that we are in the middle of an ERP transition. Some of our funds or some of our processes have already moved into the ERP. Some of them are still in our current system, Springbrook, and that made it a little bit difficult to determine our end fund balances. So our quarterly report is as of September 18th instead of September 30th. I should have started with that. That's delineated within the report itself, but because of that, things like sales tax, which is reported at the very end of the month, they look a little bit underreported. I think if we had included September's, that would probably be about 97%. So it's lower than we anticipated, but not as drastic as it looks.
Just quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Not to put you on the spot, so it's fine to go get an answer and come back later, but have we checked with the city attorney? So there's a state law that requires financial reporting to the council quarterly. Have we double checked that misalignment of the dates makes sense? I have no objection to what you said, but if we double check that that's not going to get us or a problem with the state, out of compliance, state auditor finding of some type, or have we just made sure we're not, so we don't want to walk into because you know how these things are. It's a state auditor finding that comes 2 years from now, and so if we could avoid, which is far too late to do anything about it. So it'd be nice right now if we need to get a waiver or something like that, to try and do that on a timely basis.
Okay.
So don't answer me now, but just unless you have nailed that down, I recommend you check with Mr. Linehan and just,
Thank you.
yeah, and maybe with the state auditor. Sorry, didn't mean to throw you off
Oh,
there.
you're fine. Sales tax revenue, as we said, is forecasted to be 331,000 less than budgetary expectations, according to the quarterly report. I dug into that a little bit more, and I think it's about 100,000 less. Utility tax revenue is anticipated to be 184,000 higher than budgeted. And then our charges for goods and services are also high. $326,000, and that's primarily due to some increased collections that community development has been chasing down.
Just to be clear, that would be like fees for,
Historical engineering services
Yeah,
and things
all
like
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
correct.
And do most of those higher fees come along with higher costs in that those are costs that those fees are paying for things that we contract out, and so therefore we sort of get an offsetting cost as well? Or is that stuff that's primarily stuff that's done by our employees, so the cost doesn't change?
I think typically those are offset, but I believe that some of these relate to historical things that occurred in previous bienniums. So it would be pure revenue in those
Got it. So
cases.
the cost would have been somewhere in the past.
But I don't know how much of that total revenue belongs in which category.
Okay, thank you.
We have a detailed, this is the expenditure chart. You can see that administration and non-departmental are both a little bit high. Non-departmental, again, is experiencing, well, probably all the funds we had to push to get in expenses before we made the switch into our new ERP. So chances are good that they are a little bit high, that they're appearing a little bit high. Non-departmental in particular, when I increased it to September, to the end of September, it wasn't quite as bad. I think that the overage was about half of what it appears right now. So which means that we're still a bit over. Some of that relates to things that we pay at the very beginning of the year. So I think we're a little high there, but it's not drastic. Administration also a little bit high, and you will see one of our amendments relates to that. We have just some, it's just a different kind of a year this year with inflation, what it is, and changing some of our staffing changing. But as it combined, our expenditures are approximately 582,000 under budget within the general fund. That relates to vacancies within community development, and some slowdown in expected development activity. Just so you're aware, the long-term forecast does not incorporate any anticipated development. When that appears imminent, then we will probably begin to include that. But until then, it's a maybe. Also, salary increases for union negotiations not included. And the forecast anticipates full staffing levels at the city in the future with annual salary and benefit increases. So even though we've talked about vacancies tonight, our budget includes full staffing. And this is, as of the second amendment that we did way back in June, this is our general operating future. So that orange line that you see is the expenditures, and you can see that around 2026, 2027, those lines cross with the dark green. We've talked before about the lines crossing when our expenditures exceed our revenues, and it's an ongoing conversation. This is going to happen year after year because of the way that Washington State does budget or does property taxes. We're limited, and there's no limit on inflation. And you can see, you can compare it to what we estimated in 2022. Both expenditures and revenues are higher than we estimated. Right here, I'm going to switch over to an amendment.
Sorry, before you switch, could I just ask a question? So I'm not going to hold you to the exact numbers, but I want to make sure I understand what we're kind of looking
Yes.
at. So in the, looks more like red line to me, which is, I think, the expenditures as we think they'll be.
Yes.
Okay. So that projection is for wages and salaries for union and for all our employees
Within the general fund, yes.
within the general fund at a particular inflator, which I want to say I'm pulling this purely off the top of my head, was something like 2 to 3%.
That's a fair guess. We are relying on King County's economic forecasts. So, I'll include that data in this table. So the question doesn't have to be asked.
Thank you. So then as we think about this chart, if we end up agreeing to union contracts that are above whatever that number that's built in. Is the right way to understand this chart is that that crossover point, absent some revenue. So if nothing else changes, but union contracts come in higher than what's in there, that crossover point moves a lot to the left. Is that correct?
You're correct.
Okay. That was my question on this chart. Thanks.
A couple of questions. So you're expecting revenues between 2023 and 2024 to increase by $1 million?
Yes.
Right?
Wait, let's see what's going on here. I pulled this from an old chart. Let's see. You know, let me get back to you on that.
Okay, and then in prior statement, you said, I think in the prior discussion on the forecasting, we said to eliminate the frozen positions. I believe your statement was you still have those positions in there as funded. So we probably need to be consistent if we're eliminating them, take them out of the expected expenditures moving forward. So level set on that and work those numbers. So that we're consistent between the head count plan and the budget. It's my only other comment at the moment.
Thank you.
No, thank you for saying that because it triggered my head like, well, wait a minute, we're not consistent.
Okay. And part of this mid-biennium review includes an amendment request. And I'm going to jump over to that right now.
Well, you went to the Chambliss pie chart school.
On my make it bigger button is hiding. Oh, there we go. Not that big.
Whoa.
Yeah, I got a printout right here. Oh, he's got it.
Yeah. Okay. Number one, citywide insurance premiums appropriation. We estimate this when we are creating the budget, and then those rates are given to us from Washington City's insurance authority. It depends on several things, how much property the city has, our history with claims, and then also just how other cities are doing. So we have a small amount of control over it, based on how we manage our assets, and how we minimize our claims, but really those numbers aren't ours to decide, or to manage. And this year for 2023, we underestimated our budget amount by 37,982. And we don't have the official numbers from WCIA yet, but for 2024, based on the estimates that they've given us, we believe that we need to increase our budgetary appropriation by $185,600.
Go ahead.
So kind of telling us impact by year is helpful,
Mhm.
but just so that we're clear, we only make one biennial appropriation. We don't appropriate the years.
You're correct.
So, administration can move money between years as they need to. They're not, yes, they develop the forecast for us by year because that helps all of us understand it. But in fact, the appropriation is just a single biennial appropriation. So like in this case, you wouldn't need two requests here. It's just one request for the combined number. So you may want to lay this chart out differently to make clear what that number is, or you may not need to, but I was just looking at the column headers, and it's really, there isn't a 2023 appropriation. There's a biennial appropriation, and you're just looking for one for what it's worth.
You are
I mean,
correct.
it's still helpful to understand these numbers by year though. So thank you.
Well, we can certainly change that presentation, however you prefer.
And so what is the current yearly plan cost or biennial cost for the insurance?
That's something I don't have. I want to say it's about 240,000. I can get that for you as well. It's a big increase.
240,000 for the biennial
You know
for
what?
a year.
They separate it into two portions, so I might be my brain is looking at one. I can look that up and
You
give
might,
it to you.
just for clarity and
It's
just so I know what to get excited about. You might put a column in here that says, what is the existing
great
budget?
idea.
And then then we can see what the delta is. I don't know if that's a big change or a small change to what we pay for insurance. I assume next year it's a big change.
2024, I believe, is a 25% increase, is what I'm remembering. So it's a big change. It's a big one.
Do you happen to know why that happened, or is that just, I mean, that rates did that? Was it something? Let me ask that better. What I'm really curious is, do you know, is that something Snoqualmie specific that caused that, or is that just the general rates? Everyone in the state's getting that?
I spoke to them about this last year. And they said that Snoqualmie's claims are actually really good, but it's a group insurance. It's a pooled kind of a system. And so as everybody's rates increase, whether that's inflationary or whether it's, I don't know, accidents happening all over the community, it just is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So it's group experience. It's not city specific.
Their city specific goes into their calculation. But when I called them, they said that ours was really good, but we would still be expecting large increases
Yeah, because of the group. Yeah,
because of the group.
yeah. Okay, got it.
Okay, and this technically it falls in the general fund, but then we do some cost allocating. So this will fall on various funds, not just general fund. Next one is the police department gun range lead abatement. The police department has a gun range in their facility, in their police department. And it is due for cleaning, I believe, every 5 years. Currently, when they went in to look to have this done, it appears that the rubber backing material has reached the end of its life. And it needs more than just a cleaning, it needs replacement. And so this is something that wasn't budgeted, and it's an increase that we need to do to be compliant with OSHA, and also so that we don't lose access to this facility, the use of this facility.
That's probably a cheap question. Is that range sole use Snoqualmie, or do we have other agencies coming in and using?
If I had to put a percentage on it, we're about 98% Snoqualmie use. But we do have a couple of different agencies that will come in and test fire guns. They will come in and qualify 1 or 2 guys that need it. I do believe we have the Duval Police Department coming in later this week to use it. But that is very far and few between. So the majority of it is us.
Do we charge a usage fee?
Excuse me?
Do we charge a usage fee?
We do not.
But if I'm understanding you, it wouldn't be a whole lot of dollars because it's just not that big a percentage of.
It doesn't happen very often. No,
I, for some reason, had in my mind that it was a fairly large use by others, but that's just not the case.
no, it's not.
It's us.
It's us.
Got it.
Yeah. And the issue with this is we already kind of have a model of what would happen if we didn't do this with the Issaquah Police Department. They fell behind on theirs and the state got involved. They took over the range and required it to become a lead-free range, which cost exorbitant amounts, and restructuring of their air systems. And the ammunition is, way higher than regular leaded ammunition. So we're trying to get ahead of this prior to that happening, so we can still have this facility at our use.
Well, and even if we were to decide to do this somewhere else, there'd be remediation and whatever of the existing range.
Yeah, that would be a wasted piece of space because it needs to be cleaned, it
Sealing
needs to
up,
be
yeah.
de-leaded. So, yeah.
The next one, Centennial Fields All-Inclusive Park, is based on AB 23-88, which was approved June 26th. We needed additional funding for the all-inclusive park. That totals $110,088. 4A is the valve turning machine. This was budgeted for in our biennial budget. However, what we estimated turned out to be less than the actual amount required. Let me see. So we estimate that we are short about $43,900, and this would be funded by the Water Utility Fund. transferred it into the ER&R fund for purchase. So that looks like a double appropriation, and it is, but only one represents a decrease in the city's funds.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask an accounting question? Why do that? Why not just buy it out of the utility fund? Or pay for it rather out of the utility fund?
Capital purchase, I guess, is we do our purchases out of ER&R. We could probably do that straight out of the water. Is that
The
your
reason I
preference?
ask is just for non-accountants, when we move funds between, because of the way we do accounting, if we were a GAAP basis, that we wouldn't have this trouble. Because of the way we do accounting, our reporting makes all of those look like, you use the word correctly, it makes it look like double expenditures, which it isn't. But, you know, for the public trying to understand numbers we put up on our websites, for even just talking to us on the council about it, just my advice is avoid transfers between funds wherever possible. So this kind of purchase is permissible straight out of that fund. Right out of utility capital expenditures out of utility funds is permissible. So I'd recommend you do that and simplify the reporting, simplifies the accounting. Accountants will thank you, but it simplifies the reporting. It doesn't change that you need the money, but just for whatever it's worth, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We can make that change.
So, all right, back up on number 3. I don't remember in particular, but didn't we have some offsets for that overage?
I don't believe that we do.
And I don't remember. I was just general
I can
blank
explain
stare question here.
the background was that when we were carrying over from 2021 and 22's budget, we had estimated that we'd spend about 110,000 in that budget cycle. We did not, and we need the money to keep the same cost of the total project for the 2023-24. So in a sense, it was kind of, the project was staggered across the biannual cycle, and we did not account for needing the money this biennium rather than as much as we allocated for last one. Is that
We thought we'd spend it, but we hadn't. So now we've got to.
and so now
come
the
up with
project is short by about 110,000, even though the total project cost has not changed. And in fact, the bids and whatnot came in really close to total project cost.
Well, and in essence, the 110,000 for last biennial went into the ending fund balance, and now we're taking it out as an increase this year. But okay,
But,
go ahead.
but problem is, we already accounted for all the beginning fund balance. So that's already allocated across this CIP. So therefore, this really is adding 110 to the total costs that we're going to have to fund going forward.
Unless there's not a
So,
description.
so it's right that he has to add it, or they have to add it here, because it's a spend that we now have to find a source for.
The overall CIP value of the CIP didn't change.
Did. It went up because the CIP only goes from January 1st, 23 forward. So January 1st going forward, it's gonna be 110 higher than we thought it would be.
But in the prior biennial, we spent 110 less.
True.
It went into the ending fund balance. got
Yep.
Carried forward.
Yep.
And now we're gonna take that 110 out of the ending fund.
Already
balance.
took it out.
Where did it go?
One of the projects up and down the CIP. Makes sense? Because the CIP had, here's our total spending, guys, here's our total sources. Net over the 6 years, down to, I can't remember the number, but close to 0.
All right, I'll go educate myself afterwards. All right,
Did you have a comment on the 43,000? So you talked about limiting the number of transfers in, transfers out. That's something that we can look at in the future, but I would say for this particular thing that, I mean, she's already done the work. We already have everything ready to go, and so we can look at it in the future, but I don't think we need to change it on
But-
this.
it's still a zero-sum game for the ER&R fund. That it gets $43,000.
Right.
From well, the getting of the $43,000 isn't represented here from water utility. There's an expenditure in water utility and an expenditure out of ER&R to purchase the equipment, but there's no record of ER&R gaining $43,000 by the transfer. So again, this looks like as if it's actually 47 or $87,000 expenditure versus when it's only really a $44,000 expenditure. So either show it as one or show it as three, which one's a minus, one's a plus, and then there's another minus to show $43,000 going out, but it's not an added expense of $48,000 or $88,000. So how you guys want to show it, that's up to you, but go ahead.
So this is exactly why I'm making my comment. The reason that you don't see the plus here is because this is an expenditure request. It's not, there's revenues aren't here, just the spending side. So they didn't show us any revenues on this chart.
Show me, I swore the heading said positive and minuses. Now go up to the top of the chart. So if you look in there, it says appropriation increase or decrease.
So the point there would be in ER&R,
There's an increase and decrease, zero
There's-
sum.
zero sum, there shouldn't be a number there.
There's a zero sum change in the fund, but we still need to increase the appropriation so we can spend the money out of it.
Spend it.
And if you look at attachment, I believe it is 4 to this document, you'll be able to see how each fund is affected. So you would see ER&R, 43,900 coming in, 43,900 coming out. So that's where we reconcile it to our ordinance table.
Okay.
Because remember, an appropriation is only the spending side. It's never, it doesn't include the revenue side. But this just highlights exactly the point I'm making. And Mayor, I understand your point, but I don't know. If we can't make things better, I don't know what I'm doing here on my Tuesday nights. I think getting this out of here makes it better and simpler for folks to understand it. It's simplifying things, not making it harder. So I don't know. I think we ought to make it simpler.
Okay, please take it under advisement. I don't know if we're gonna draw the conclusion tonight.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Wait
On
a
to
minute,
5A. Oh, sorry.
Director Shamlis.
I've been down this road before and I've had some success rather than show the water fund as spending for the equipment. I would show that appropriation as a transfer to the ER&R fund and then show the spending in the ER&R fund, which made it a little clearer for my airport commission. We just mentioned the equipment once, the others we mentioned as an.
This is a transfer. You're not actually buying, yeah, the water fund's not actually buying. Okay.
Love that idea. Wish we would do that all the time. Here's the problem. Under Washington, under the bars, the accounting rules for a cash basis taxpayer, transfers are considered expenditures. So that's where the trouble comes in. And so now, can you artificially divide your expenditures between the true expenditures and the transfers and then show, okay, total expenditures, so you still get your appropriation ordinance right? You can, it's just extra work. Whatever kind of clears it up, I think I love it. In this case, I just think it's simpler. Just take this guy out of ER&R and it's just simpler for you, but you decide.
Okay. 5A has a 5B, which you're all going to love. This is stormwater pond improvement. It was approved in Agenda Bill 23-100 in August. And this is to support the storm pond fencing replacement project. You can see that it's an increase of $128,943 in appropriation. However, there's a $75,000 stormwater grant, which we are using to decrease the well, the loss to the fund balance. And then we're also transferring some funds from stormwater utility, 53,943 to support this agenda bill.
Okay. Well,
Should I move on to number 6?
I'm okay. I
Okay.
understand. Thank you. for the
Source of
proposal.
supply feasibility program. This relates to a grant from the Department of Ecology, I think it is. Thank you. It's a $529,787 grant, and it relates to a feasibility study and a pilot program to use some of the high flow from Canyon Springs and divert it to the aquifer, so it's seasonally available. And if you have questions on that, we have a whole crew who can answer them. But this appropriation is matched 100% by grant
Yes,
funds.
it's a zero sum ultimately.
Is that grant awarded yet to us?
Was there an agenda bill in which we accepted that?
Yes.
Can we,
To get that.
yeah, can we note the agenda bill in here? When we get a chance?
And if for any reason we haven't done it, bring us the agenda bill quick. We will approve it. Do you know, sorry, I don't mean to, if you don't know, it's fine. Just, I don't mean to put you in the spot. Do you know if that contract's signed yet? That it is signed. Okay. Well, we must have had an agenda bill then. Otherwise we wouldn't.
Well,
have
I
it signed.
actually list both agenda bills in here, please, so we know the lineage.
Okay,
Just as long as just so you know, you might have wondered, hey, how come Mayhew didn't have a problem with 5A and 5B? Like he did with the other? It's because they're both in utility. It's when we're going to general from cap, that's where I'm, yeah, or I think it was that's why, that's how I saw it as different.
okay. Let's see, next is Eagle Lake Reclamation Basin. This is also an agenda bill 23-110 in October. This supports the Eagle Lake Reclamation Basin improvements. And it is not a transfer, just a straight up $49,006 from the Utility Capital Fund. Next, we have 8A, which is part of the ERP system project. The goal of this one is to true up our life of project budget and just get us to where we have sufficient spending to really make some progress on this project. We are estimating that it will take $405,273 in 2023 and $157,175 in 2024 for a grand total of, I should have a column, like you said, 526 odd thousand, somewhere in that ballpark. 500 and yeah, I didn't do that well, but you can add those together. We're planning on supporting that to some degree with non-recurring sales tax in excess of budget of about $254,000. And then for the remainder of that, we're supporting it with there are certain modules for utility billing and capital and grant management, and those will be funded in their percentages by the utility funds and non-utility capital and utility capital. And if you want to see the breakout of that, that is on both the third and the fourth attachments to this. You can see it coming in and out of each fund. And so the remainder of that is what's coming out of the utility funds, and the non-utility capital fund is $129,698 during 2023 and $157,175 during 2024. And I have more details on that. There is a memo in this packet to give more details, or I can go through that right here just to show how the life of project budget works out. It's expected to go over 3 bienniums. It involves a lot of funds in a lot of areas of the city. But that is where we estimate that's the funding that we believe we need to make this happen this year and next year. And then our final amendment is IT systems repair. This was recommended by Avoxy Consulting, who was hired this year to help us figure out just what the next steps are for our IT system. It includes a fiber audit and an increase to the budgeted core switch replacement amount, totaling $126,878. The grand total for these amendments is 2.2 million. If you take out things like transfers and revenue, then the net decrease in fund is 944,000 approximately.
You have a question, Mr. Mayhew?
So many questions.
The top one?
I'll ask one and then I'll ask the top one. So I thought, and I obviously am wrong, but I thought that we had moved the ERP system project out of 502 and into a capital fund.
That was proposed when Drew Boutte was here, and I don't believe it was too much. There was an amendment and then there was a new fund, and I think that council's response was that it was too much too quickly. And so we took the new fund out of the process to simplify.
So my main point, this council has never in at least 20 years approved the transfer of construction sales tax into the operating fund, and there's no way we should do that now. Absolutely not. Now, if this is 502 is funded part of the operating fund. So if we're talking about moving money from 310 into another capital budget, fine. If we're talking about moving it to the operating budget, I'm categorically opposed to it. We've never done that. There's a reason we've never done it, and today is not the day to start. So that's number one. Then regarding the amount, assuming in my mind now, I'm just thinking about it as capital fund. If we're going to add $1 million in spending, we need to take $1 million of spending out somewhere else because we don't have $1 million, unless I'm not understanding what you said about the sales tax. So maybe I just didn't follow that. Maybe you're telling me, no, you do have more money. So if that's the case, would you mind going over that again? Because what I was hearing in my head was $1 million more of spending with, where's that coming from? But maybe you said that and I just didn't listen.
No, you're right. The $1 million is after the sales tax revenue.
So I think if we're going to spend, so if we need to spend this, okay. But then we've got to find something else that we take out of the budget because money doesn't magically appear. So if we're putting $1 million in, we got to take $1 million out.
I guess that's satisfied your last comment though. So these are an increase in appropriations, but overall the budget went down? Is that what I?
No, it's an increase in appropriation, meaning the budget went up. So it's
Okay.
increased spend.
Alright.
And may I ask your preferred order of operations? I wasn't here when the previous amendment for ERP was presented. But I think that the suggestion was to create a capital account and an amendment to fund that account and move the non-recurring sales tax in. And I believe that the overwhelming response was, you're doing too much at once. So yeah, what would be your proposed order of operations in this?
Well, just, I think what we were trying to say at the time, I'm going off memory, was you're trying to say, do two separate things. They can happen at the same time, just don't combine them. So which one is tell us you need to spend more money. Number two is tell us, by the way, we don't like doing this in 502. We're going to do it in a 300 series fund. And we're going to move the funding from 310 into 3 whatever XX. those are two different, one's sort of an accounting thing. One is, are we willing to spend the money? So just separate the two concepts.
You're right that one is an accounting thing, but in terms of appropriation, it's also an amendment.
Yes.
So. Okay, so one
you-
amendment. However, separated.
So what, perhaps the easiest way out, given where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
and we have done this in past years, is simply as part of this, because you're doing this in some other funds anyway, just have us move. Sorry. I guess I'm just trying to think how this would work. What I was going to say is it's actually a little more complex than this, so I'm thinking quickly, but conceptually it is just take this fund, the amount that's in 502 that relates to ERP for the whole biome, just take the amount and as a single thing, move that from 502 to 3XX.
Okay,
And have us at the same time authorize the creation, because we have to authorize the creation of a new fund, 3X, just have us authorize it and move the fund in as part of this one step. We've done that before. And then I guess this item would then be then not proposing to do this spending in 502, but rather in 3XX. Does that make sense?
makes sense.
And then you'd be proposing that the funding came from 310. So
Creating a
310
new
to
account, is
3XX.
what you're saying?
A new fund. Because I thought that's what we had all agreed to at the time. I think that was what Mr. Boutet's proposal was, which seemed to make sense. It got confusing to us because too much was happening at once.
Okay.
By the way, another way, actually, if we want to be even simpler, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking, forget 3XX. Just do it in 310. We do all our projects in almost all our projects in 310. We used to do we used to have dozens of these 3X funds. We kind of several years ago moved to just let's do almost everything in 310, which makes sense. So the other way you could do it is just use 310. You don't even need a new fund. You just need a new line item. Sorry, you need a new line item in 310. That's all you need. You need to move the money from 502 into 310, and then we just add the additional amount you're talking about here, just do it in 310. So that's even easier. Does that make sense, Mr. Chambliss? Trying to make it simple, but the thing that's really important to me here is construction sales tax needs to stay in the 300 series. I think that's just critical. This has been something we've done for decades, and I don't think we should change that.
Mr. Chalice?
I don't want this to be a but, and it doesn't involve construction sales tax. You just made the statement, you want to spend $1 million, cut $1 million. Understand? Agree. I do believe in some cases that some of the funds are in fund balance because they weren't spent when they should have been to do this work. So,
Point the park.
for example, the IT equipment that we have that is aging out should have been in a program and should have been spent. And instead that money wasn't spent in those bienniums and it is in their fund balance. So I think in those cases, it would be appropriate to use the fund balance to fund those activities. While in some cases, we need to cut where we're asking for additional spend.
Yeah, so completely agree. If we're talking about, hey, we got some 502 money that we want to use towards this, I think that's fine.
Oh, I wasn't
What-
talking about ERP. I was talking about
Oh, generally,
specifically
Yeah.
the IT equipment.
which I was assuming came out of 502.
Oh,
Do we not, I think we
sorry.
pay for IT.
I don't
equipment out
have
of
the full
502.
access to sprinklers, so I'm still learning my funds.
I'm an accountant, so
I
I
can't
like
wait
these
for
things
Tyler.
tick for me. I know, right? So yeah, I think I completely agree with what you're saying, and it's just the mechanics. But what I'm getting at is if the money's coming out of REIT or construction sales tax, anything that we put in our capital funds, we should spend it out of there on capital items, which this is a capital item. But we should spend it in the 300 series on capital items, not transfer it to an operating fund. Once we start down that path, you're just going to lose all track of things. I think it's a very bad move. And it's not necessary. The question is not, are we going to spend it? I'm just saying it's a capital fund, spend it in the capital fund. Don't send it over to 502, which is an operating fund.
Got it.
Well, it's a special purpose. It's like an operating fund. It's in, so, and then, but then back to the other point, which is if we're going to spend, so what I thought you were going to say, and maybe this is part of what you're saying on the fund balances, when we look at our CIP, we have a 6-year CIP. And I'm doing this totally off my memory, but I want to say it's like 60 million or so, give or take, over 6 years. I think that's right. I'm just talking about non-utility CIP.
Yeah.
And so when we look out, we see the fund balance up and then down. And right now, our fund balance is up. So if we just look at the 2 years, we may have the cash for this. In fact, I'm virtually positive we do. So I'm not worried about the cash. But if that 6-year CIP accounts for all of the money we have, including the starting fund balance, then if we add $1 million of spending in, then we're coming out the back end $1 million short. So we better identify something. Now, maybe that doesn't have to be cut in this biennium,
I understand.
but it should need to be cut somewhere in the 6-year CIP so that we know we're not, blowing past that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm suggesting.
Or covered by project underruns.
We're covered by project error. Yeah. So maybe we do a little CIP
True up.
true up. That's, yeah. I just want to, I think we should hold ourselves to that discipline and try to do it in the simplest way, because we don't have 20 staff to do this. So try and keep it as simple as we
Well,
can.
it gets complicated really quick.
But I do think it's really important that we have capital sources that are restricted or designated for capital purposes only be spent out of capital funds, not transferred to operating funds. Or whatever these are, special purpose funds, or that's not the name. Anyway, the 500 series.
So one-time expenses should be within capital.
Yes.
It should be funded by one-time revenue,
Yes.
so that we're not tempted in the operating fund to use one-time expenses for ongoing expenses, which should be covered by our other revenue sources.
That's my point.
I understand. Have we helped you?
Well, we took a whole bunch of work off your plate, right?
I'm doing
Oh, wait,
great.
or the
I'm
opposite.
I'm checking that she agrees with that.
No, we put work on our plate.
Okay. So we have some changes to make to this, it sounds like. I do want to show you just before we go off of this. So this is the governmental operating chart that we looked at before. This is it after the amendment. So you can see those lines cross in 2025. They would for general fund. And then if we add staffing back in, the staffing changes that we made, then it's about equal in 2025 and it crosses in 2026. However, this chart relies on freezing positions rather than eliminating them. So that would probably extend us a little bit farther, maybe not all the way to 2026, but definitely positive in 2025. So just informational, that's where we would be after
Very helpful.
that amendment and staffing. And then Councilmember Mayhew, you asked particularly, maybe that chart showed what you wanted, but you wanted to know revenues versus expenditures or sources versus uses. And that is this chart. This is for 2023. You can see the general fund decreases by 2.7 million. This is based on all the amendments that have been done, this proposed amendment, And then also the staffing. Yep, absolutely. So the funds to pay attention to, I would say, particularly with regard to union negotiations. 001 general fund has employees, and then you skip down to the 400s for 401 through 417 for another bulk of employees. And then also the 501 through the 510 funds. Those are the ones that are going to have Teamsters in them. And or some of our other union negotiations. So if we jump down to the water operations fund.
No, wait a minute. He's putting fingerprints on them.
Okay.
That's why you don't feed us chocolate, okay?
Lesson learned.
Internal service funds, that's the correct term for the 500. I know I didn't do it.
Yes.
So what I'm looking at is not the column on the far right, because I don't honestly think it's particularly relevant. What I think is terribly relevant for everything above 310 is that the expenditures not exceed the revenues. But here, we're showing expenditures exceed revenues, which means we have an unsustainable budget.
So you're focusing on which funds? The one,
Everything down to not including 310.
above 310.
Yeah, and then I got confused whether I should be including the 500s.
So the managerial funds and the special revenue funds, those are, I would say, the kinds of funds where we usually only spend money when we have money. Like the LTAC funds, we gather that.
I understand.
Okay.
No, I understand what each of those funds are. This is not what we've been presenting the way we did it in the budget. And we've been doing it for actually a fair number of years now, is we've showed operating, trying to remember the term we used, general operating funds, I think, and we, in essence, showed all of those funds together to say, here's the total. There's a table we've been using, which I don't have in front of me, and we'd show what the total then of all of those were for revenues and then the total for expenditures, and we could see if expenditures were exceeding revenues.
Do you mean the
Which here
tables?
they are.
Oh, pardon. Do you mean the tables that show general fund by classification?
Perhaps.
Where you can see the police and the fire? And
Yeah, I
the
think that was in there as well.
administration?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But it came, yeah, and then it would tell us, then we could see, because for capital funds, the question is, do we cover that 6-year CIP? And do we cover the 2-year appropriation? That's capital funds. You don't worry about revenues expenditures. You say, do I have enough sources to pay for what I'm going to spend? On the utilities, you're looking at a 20-year rate plan. And you're just saying, hey, do my rates cover operating and capital expenditures over the long term? And so you set your rates accordingly. So those have different rules, but the rule for these funds that I'm talking about above 310 there, possibly including the 500s, I don't think the 500 should change anything. Anyway, is you simply cannot run budgets that have expenditures higher than revenues. And if you do, saying, well, I got fund balance, you are fooling yourself. You are headed for a hell of a train wreck, Because when you run out of fund balance, you're looking at massive tax increases or massive service cuts. It's just no way to run things. So you want a sustainable budget, meaning my total expenditures are covered by my total revenues in my general fund operating. It's just, you must never violate that or you have an unsustainable budget. And so I'm worried that that says we're proposing to do an unsustainable budget.
Well, a lot of these costs that are coming out of water, sewer, stormwater, they are one time in nature.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm only worried about above 310,
Above 310,
The operating.
the operating stuff.
general fund.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about the 100 to 1. Those are earmarked funds that we're not spending, but they're not available for other things.
well, some of them are, but yeah, okay, fine, I agree.
And I would say that the
I
bulk,
mean, actually, no, the bulk of them are. Well, I gotta see which one she's got listed. Have we gotten rid of 130? Oh, we have gotten rid of it. Okay, yeah, what you said is true. Sorry.
Yeah.
We used to have a big community development fund that threw everything off, but I think we killed that.
what I
don't see
have,
it up there.
oh, pardon me.
So it really narrows down to the general fund where we're about $2.5 million.
That's my concern. Yes.
What I haven't done is separate that into one time and ongoing, which you have seen. Let's see which one.
Yeah, that's the guy. Can I go up and look at that guy?
Okay, yep. So these tables correlate.
Do you want to zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, this guy.
Sorry.
got-
Ah,
There you go.
And this row right across here tells us if we got trouble or not.
I saw a number.
can't do it on
Fine,
this
just
little
leave it, Just
touchpad.
leave it, just leave it.
He said we got the one time sort of broken out down here.
That is
So we're looking
correct.
at the ongoing here, so we can say, hey, are we getting ourselves in trouble?
So
No, it's not.
I think my laptop just died.
Oh, that.
Oh, that.
I was wondering, plug in, what?
Like Mike.
No, hit close, you can keep going, but you're gonna run out real soon.
All right, so maybe you kind of come back to us and try and. Is that guy updated or that guy you're saying maybe could get updated or which one was it? Or you
And
didn't
I-
know?
One that
Use
includes,
This microphone will plug you in.
thank you. This one includes the amendment that I proposed
Okay,
as well as the staffing changes. And I have
Okay.
versions that do not include that amendment and do not include.
no, if you
Staffing.
show us the one that includes what you're asking for, then we'd know if we're okay, right? In terms of this concern I'm raising.
Too slow.
I think maybe too slow.
You want to use mine?
Burned out a battery.
Uh-oh.
Find that
Uh-oh.
chart.
That'll be a rule. Once we burn through the battery,
Yeah.
we probably need to take a pause. So let me ask in general though,
It's in secure finance documents.
have you got enough feedback to take the next step? And maybe we do that next step as part of the workshop we're talking
Just
about
died.
at the beginning of the next council.
Sorry, say that all again.
Are we giving you enough information to take the next step? To do some of the tweaking you're talking about?
I think so. Do you want me to make these changes and then bring it to council on Monday?
And then we can do that as
Is
part
that
of.
too soon?
It's quick.
Oh,
It's
okay.
possible, so.
Well, I don't want to give you.
No, I don't
wanna
wanna
make you
keep-
crazy.
I don't want to kill you and the battery. Okay, the battery I'm willing to kill. You, I'm not.
Yeah, we have a public hearing on Monday regarding these numbers.
Yeah, we'll shoot for Monday.
Needs to be done.
Okay, and can we then that's probably the workshop. That and one other item is the workshop discussion at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7. Okay, I don't wanna, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Mayor, I think I'm in tune with you. We need to stay on track with, we've only got the meetings we've got, so that's what you're sort of focused on is we gotta keep moving forward, because otherwise we're gonna get really in trouble on time, right?
Absolutely, because we have a public hearing and then 2 readings.
2 readings, right?
Right.
So let's see, so right now, so right now, the 2 readings would both be in November, is that our thinking. Yeah, and our problem is once we slip into December, we get all kinds of issues. Yeah. So we're trying to keep it in November, right? Got it. So in order for it to stay in November,
It's gonna have to be
it's
next
gonna have to
council
be
meeting.
Monday, yeah. Now, yeah,
But if we need to make revision, I think we're allowed to make revisions as required between first reading and second reading.
we are.
So we can work it.
Yeah, so if you don't quite get there and there's a few things we have to tweak before the next, we can do that.
Okay. So we're good for now?
Yeah, can I just ask a question? I'm just trying to think, because, well, no, this next item we basically already covered, which is this ERP. What I'm trying to think about is how we get the council through this. Because the big thing on here, I think, really, is this, the ERP. And so getting them through the ERP, I think. So my thought, like, if it was me doing this, having to present this, then what I'd present the ERP thing first by itself. Forget the accounting, which funds and all, the chart and get them to understand the 100,000 or whatever the numbers are, and get them through that. And they either accept that or they don't. And if they do, then we move on to, this becomes a lot more easy, I think. But you need to do it the way that makes sense for you guys.
Thank you. That's good advice.
Okay, so we're ready to close the conversation on the biennial budget amendment and take that to let them go off, do work, take that to the next council meeting. All right, with that, I really propose to table the rest of the conversation. And let's go right to the council agenda and review that.
Yeah, we frankly, we already covered the ERP item.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna go into more detail on the actual million. We know we've kind of, it is what it is, right?
I'm looking for facial expression.
We're prepared to, I mean, if you're satisfied, then it's my bedtime, but
I mean, someone could say, hey, why are you doing that part of the million? Or why, they could pick at individual pieces and question them either as to doing them at all or timing of them.
so
Although I don't think
we
timing's
turned
the-
ERP way down and it's about $500,000. So it's not a full million anymore. And a lot of that was errors in the way that things were budgeted in the past. And those errors were carried forward and we need to true up.
I would just say beyond this committee, I just think that conversation just be, one possibility is council members are, okay. One is that they really push back on, I don't know, but that's why I'd go through that conversation first, because that's where the beef is going to be. Does that make sense? And then, once we're okay with the amount, then it's just how do we, get it into a budget ordinance and whatnot. All right, but I would be prepared if we are going to end up with that number I pointed at in that chart showing that our expenditures are greater than revenues. I know I'm going to be pushing back on that and really questioning that. So, but a big part of that is if they're one-timers, if you get them down in that one-time section and explain why they're one-timers, that helps explain why that's sensible to do. Does that make sense?
It does.
Just trying to help us get through Monday.
Right.
And know where the, tripwires might be. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so we'll move on to council agenda for November 13th. I think I heard that the item we did have scheduled for roundtable agenda is coming off. Although we would like probably a discussion on the property tax levy. And the biennial budget amendment, and probably 30 minutes each, and that's probably that hour.
Maybe we do property tax levy, ERP system, and then mid-biennium budget.
Okay, you got,
Uh, Is that an okay way to go through it, or you just want to
you
roll
think
it in?
20 minutes each is enough?
Well, I think,
We'll see.
I mean, property tax levy. The slide, I have edited the slides down, so there's no longer 32 slides, so I'm hoping we could get through that in about 15, depending on questions. And then ERP 20, and then the remainder on the budget.
But if the budget spills over, that's okay. We take that up in,
Yeah.
when it comes up on, I think we're okay if we do that. If the
Okay.
key is getting them through, understand the ERP, understanding the tax levy and the ERP, I think is. Then the only thing is this question of, do we have a expenditures greater than revenue and general fund issue? That's sort of all that's a big issue left.
Yep.
So either we get to it or we get to it in the regular meeting.
Okay, well, the tax levy,
Right.
in the past, we had it down to 1 or 2 slides.
Really?
Yeah, because it's pretty much how do you come up with 0.89? So that's one thing, and then it's what you had last year, what you're allowed to do this year, comes up with this, and there's the goofy math, which comes up into the mill rate. But that was,
I'm
but
told
you
the
do what you
dollar,
want.
I'm told the dollar bill picture is
The
very
dollar bill,
important.
don't you remember
It
Jim's
is.
dollar bill picture? And then there's a whole.
That
it's a
just tells people where their tax money goes to. It doesn't tell us, the council, how the levy is calculated.
Yes, but there may be some council members who've never been through that before.
That's what I'm saying. We ought to take them through that. And that was the one slide. It
It's
said,
still there.
here's your, okay, go on. Well, never mind. All right, so 3 things. Hi,
We were gonna have staffing.
we'll have the property tax levy, the ERP system update,
Mhm.
and the mid biennial budget amendment. Yeah, sorry, I can't wrap my lips around that. As part of a 6 o'clock workshop from 6 to 7. Okay, at 7 o'clock, we'll start the regular agenda, move through any call to order, pledge of allegiance, agenda, public hearings, presentations. We're gonna have hearings on levy ordinance and the increase ordinance and the mid biennial budget. And we have presentations on commission accomplishment. Which commission?
Arts,
Planning,
Parks and Events.
All the commissions, plural.
Yeah.
three,
Four of 'em.
four.
Yeah.
And
It's-
they've
it's
been
5
working on
minutes.
this, so they are planning on this.
Okay, but I still may be protective of council time. Go ahead.
Well, I really want to see that
Okay.
presentation, but I think
It's full agenda.
that it's a full agenda, and what's gonna happen is I think they're not gonna get. I think that's not gonna accomplish what we'd like. I'd suggest we do that commission accomplishments just 2 weeks later. When we should have, I think, already been through all the issues for the most part, I think, for. The property tax increase and the mid-biennium budget, so that we won't have all that that this meeting could be just on those topics. This could be a midnight meeting. I think it's
And we have a 6 o'clock start.
with a 6 o'clock start. I just think those guys will get short shrift. I would make that a centerpiece of the next council meeting.
I think they're gonna give each 5 minutes. They're gonna show a couple slides they accomplished. And then that's it. So they've been planning on this. I hate to push them out to December because now they're gonna start running into.
Don't we have a second meeting in November?
So for the
So-
27th, we already have 3 presentations scheduled.
Oh, what do we have?
Department of Ecology Outstanding Performance Award, King County R Plus Award, and the Community Center presentation.
Oh, the community center presentation.
Which one?
Oh.
Okay, so I do ask that you review the presentation material and make it crisp. Not to shortchange them, but make it crisp because we got a complete agenda
Sounds good.
for this one time, okay? If not, you'll hear somebody grumpy come up and say next. But okay, leave it in there for now. Commission's accomplishments for 2023. And then any proclamations, consent agenda, we have council meeting minutes, claims approval. public safety, Norcom on there, King County property acquisition of parcel. Yep, we've got that. And then we'll move into ordinance. I thought there was another one. Nope, all right. Property tax levy ordinance, increase ordinance and mid-biennial budget as far as the ordinances are concerned. It'll be 10 o'clock then. We'll move off in committee reports, public safety, community development, parks and public works, finance. We still have resolution adopting the proposed staffing plan, which we already discussed.
Right.
And then we'll do committee of the whole 2024 legislative priority discussion and Q3 financial report informational only. Okay, we may not get time
We're not
into
gonna-
agenda items 14 and 15, so they may have to carry over. But let's leave them on and make that call then. Okay. Mayor's report, commission, committee liaison reports and department reports. And then is this just a placeholder or we have a subject for executive session?
We have a subject.
Okay. And we really did not get the legislative priorities discussion. I guess my proposal is the legislative priorities we take to the next council. Not to the coming one, but the next one after that.
When
Well, then, so then we'd be able to talk about it at our next meeting.
And we'll
here.
be able to talk about it in F and A next. Okay? Just because we're not,
Do you want to talk about F and A next? At the next one,
at the
okay.
next F and A,
that you said?
excuse me?
speak
next
about it at the
one.
next FNA.
Yeah. the next
But
F&A.
plan to move that on to the council at the
Not the
next,
next-
the following
not
council meeting,
December
in no,
meeting.
the no.
2 weeks from
November.
Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 weeks from now.
So there
Yeah,
may not be
in
a lot of
November.
discussion because no one submitted anything, so it could be what you have, the 2024 draft.
Well, no, I have a ton
Submitted
of things.
anything.
I haven't received anything from anyone.
What? I keep bringing it up. Half the items on there have never been discussed at a single council meeting. Anyone who thinks that can't
Okay.
possibly be ours.
So let's have a discussion next F and A in regards to this and get it nailed out and then move it to have it as a council discussion 2 weeks from Monday. Okay?
Okay,
You're still leaning forward though.
I am.
Okay.
Had it to have comments on it. So is there something else you wanted to add to it or?
No, I want to take a bunch of stuff off and change a bunch of stuff. We have to have a discussion. That's what committees are for, to discuss those things.
Okay,
That's true, but we asked for input by
Can you
the end of
get-
October.
write up to Deanna of the things you're talking
Yeah.
about, just a bullet list? And then we'll have the discussion next F and A.
You want me to have the discussion before I have the discussion, or I don't understand what you're asking?
Bullet list the discussion you want to have. Item on, item off, item on, item off. And let's have the discussion in the next F and A.
All right, well, except for here, so there's something on, never been discussed, council meeting doesn't, I don't know if I want it off.
Okay.
We've never
then just
discussed it. I don't know what why is this guy here? Why is that guy there versus some
discuss
other guy?
meaning and purpose of this item.
Okay,
Write that down.
all right, I can do that. Let me
Okay.
put it on my calendar so I do it.
Mayor Pro Tem, can you go back to number 8? That's on the discussion.
Number 8, what was number 8? Norcom.
No,
On the F and A agenda.
on the agenda.
On the F and A agenda.
So it's just basically canceling the December 26th council meeting, which I don't think we need agenda bill. We could just agree to cancel it.
Go ahead.
Think we should plan to cancel it, but I think it's premature. I think we need to get through we need to, I think we want to pass a mid-biennium budget, and if it doesn't get passed, we're gonna need.
You'll need that.
Now,
agenda.
I would say this, there's no way we're doing it on November 26th or December 26th. Maybe we should move it to a different date. Thinking or intending that we're probably gonna cancel it, but I think it's premature to cancel it yet.
Can we do that? Can we move it to a different date?
Sure.
Well, we can have additional, we give them proper notice, we can have additional meetings.
Exactly.
If we need to, we do.
Yeah, so we could take it that path as well.
So let's take up the cancellation, where'd I go? Of the December meeting and next F and A. Let's get through the next council meeting, see how far we get.
Well, hold on. So I thought you were saying is go ahead and let's cancel it now, and then if we have to add one back, we'll do it then, or you just,
No,
let's just wait and see.
let's wait.
Yeah.
I'm saying if we need to have a whole new council meeting on some Thursday night, we can do that. If we can't get through this stuff, okay, we do whatever we have to do to get this thing done,
Yes.
okay? But I don't want to give up on that December meeting. I won't be here, but I won't give up on that December meeting until we know we're getting through this
And
I
if we
agree with
need
that.
to, we can reschedule it for a different
Date
date.
date or whatever.
as we approach it, yeah.
Is that
I agree
okay?
with that.
Well, if there's people that want to get their flights and know that they don't have to be here on December 26th, that would be good. So, you know, we have staff that would like to plan as well.
That's a fair point.
We'd have to do it before.
It would cause additional cost to our staff to make short-term plans.
No, we got you. We weren't seeing that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Oh, it's
that's right.
December 26th.
Yeah, no, that's right.
No, okay.
So we should either change it to a date or just kill it now and add one
Let's
later if
kill
we
it.
have to.
You can always add one
Yeah,
later.
let's just kill it.
Okay, sounds good.
Can we at least put, okay, at least put a note under F&A, say, just discussion cancellation of December 26th.
Discussion. Yeah.
I at least want it noted in Ed Council that we're doing that. I'm not in full agreement that we
Council?
don't have to have some form of action to actually cancel that meeting.
I mean, you guys canceled one this summer and didn't take full
But
action.
December there's always been an agenda bill to cancel the December meetings.
Yeah, but
So I'm not asking for an agenda bill, I'm saying discussion, let's make sure everybody's aware. The F&A intent is to cancel the December 26th meeting
You want that on which meeting?
under F&A discussion item
oh, for council?
for council,
Okay,
For next week.
Yeah.
for next
For
council.
this coming council, yeah.
I'm not sure what meeting you mean when you say next meeting. All right, so back to council agenda. Let me get back. Oh, I lost it. Sorry. I think we were through most of it though.
I think you were done. You were done.
With the addition under F&A discussion of December 26th cancellation, I think we are then through it all with executive session adjournment. Yes. So good to go or other changes? Go
No,
ahead.
just one other thing I want to give a heads up to is when we have the discussion about the general fund in particular, is where this concern will mostly be focused, is the numbers we have there. So we talked about, our expenditures greater than revenue. I'll be focused on that. But the other thing is, be careful in my wording here, is I'll be concerned about the possibility, what if our union negotiations come in higher than what's built in? If we, that would be potentially further shortage. And so maybe you could give some thought to how we could have such a discussion without tripping into, you guys are in those negotiations, things that may or may not be happening. And so we don't want to trip into the middle of negotiations that are ongoing. But, at the same time, it seems like that's a relevant part of that conversation is, hey, if it does come in higher, then that'll be something additional we're gonna have to figure out how to cover. I think that needs to be at least part of the discussion, or maybe in order to sort of have that discussion not veer in weird directions, maybe you guys lead us through that part of it rather than me sort of throwing out questions and making, does this make sense what I'm saying?
It absolutely does.
Yeah, okay.
Further discussion tonight?
not on this.
You're leading forward. Well, in general. You have 3 items?
No. in full.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be part of the meeting. I could walk over and you already know about it.
Oh, okay. So something afterwards.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. That's all I needed to know. All right. Thank you. All right, we are adjourned.